Want to say a few things about this alleged incident that took place at flats of Boris Johnson last night. Because it's unusual, there's a few talking points around this. I'm going to read the BBC article just to um, have a reference to this story, and then comment a bit about some noticeable things about this. Police were called to the London home of Boris Johnson and his partner in the early hours of Friday after a neighbour reported they heard a loud argument. The Guardian said Carrie Symonds was heard telling the Conservative MP to get off me and get out of my flat. The Metropolitan Police told the BBC it spoke to all occupants of the address who were all safe and all well. The Guardian reported that a neighbour had told the newspaper they heard a woman screaming followed by slamming and banging. The paper said the neighbour was inside their own flat when they recorded the alleged altercation. It said that in the recording, heard by the Guardian but not by the BBC, Mr Johnson was refusing to leave the flat and telling the woman to get off his laptop before there was a loud crashing noise. Miss Simmons is allegedly heard saying the MP had ruined a sofa with red wine. You just don't care for anything because you're spoilt. You have no care. This is the first time I've heard this bit. You have no care for money or anything. In a statement, the Metropolitan Police said at 24 minutes past midnight on Friday, the 21st of June, police responded to a call from a local resident in the SE5 area of Camberwell. The caller was concerned about the welfare of a female neighbour. Police attended and spoke to all occupants of the address who were all safe and well. There were no offences or concerns apparent to the officers and there was no cause for police action. Mr Johnson is the bookmakers' favourite to succeed Theresa May as Conservative leader and the UK's next Prime Minister. The former Foreign Secretary and Mayor of London is in a runoff with Jeremy. Well, we know that. Okay, so this is a bit of an unusual situation, and this is why. Couples argue, right? It's a fact of life, and I think anyone who's been in a relationship and says with a straight face they've never been in a heated row with their significant other, with their boyfriend, with their girlfriend, with their wife, with their husband, I think that's really pushing it. Okay, so I don't think that's necessarily sinister in itself. And I think there's suspicious things about this. Now, apparently, the neighbours didn't go straight to the Guardian. They first of all tried to find out what was going on directly. Then they called the police because of concerns at the woman's voice. I don't know. Um, I have suspicions about this because the neighbours have made no secret of the fact that they are staunch Remain people. They even put little flyers in Johnson's car. So if the argument is, oh, there's no political agenda here, there's no conspiracy to, for example, smear Boris Johnson, that is a bit of a coincidence. It's just a bit too much of a coincidence. And Johnson supporters will look at that and say this is a blatant smear campaign. Whether this will sort of fade away as a trivial issue or not, I don't know. If there is concerns, I mean, I think the police were right to respond. That's their job. They can't ignore it if there's, allegations made. But is this a case of a nosy neighbour? Is it a case of Remainers who are sceptical of Johnson trying to defame him? Or is it just responsible neighbours doing the right thing because they had genuine concerns? Who knows? That's really the issue. One thing I noticed about it, and I've mentioned this issue before, is flipping paparazzi style journalists. And I say paparazzi style because I don't actually think they are paparazzi. I think it's just the nature of news media now. They had all their cameras, outside the residence. They've already been firing questions at Johnson, but now they've been, trying to put Carrie Simmons on the spot as she's coming to and from the residence. That's trash journalism, and I've no respect for it. Have has the media learned nothing since phone hacking? So the way I the way I look at that is Boris Johnson wants to be prime minister of this country. Of course, he has to be scrutinised, and I was critical of the fact he avoided that first debate. Incidentally, regarding debates, Jeremy Hunt is now calling for the July the 9th debate to be pulled forward. There's going to be hustings later today in Birmingham. Hunt wants the debate moved forward so that Conservative members get to actually see the debate before they vote. And I agree, it does seem a bit strange to have the debate after people actually vote. It seems rather absurd. Um, because if people change their mind, then it would obviously be too late if they've already cast a vote. Um, there's already conspiracy theories around this that the Hunt campaign is engineered. I would be very surprised if a man like Jeremy Hunt um, would stoop into that sort of behavior. I'm not saying, he's a politician. He's going to be maneuvering as all politicians do. I just don't think that Hunt is the sort of politician to do that. Michael Gove, now that's a different story because of the history between the two. But I don't know. It just seems a little bit, and I'm saying this as someone who voted Remain, and I've been critical of Johnson. I think some of the things he's come out with over the years have been indefensible. But it just seems a little bit too coincidental the day after the vote that, even if it's a case of the neighbours, okay, well, they had legitimate concerns, they haven't exactly been shrinking violets in terms of, I think they put a placard in his car and I think it said, we would rather have Boris Johnson as a neighbour than as our Prime Minister. Or it might have been the other way around. But the point was, clearly they don't like the man, which is they're right. But when they then go on to call the police on him, it makes you wonder. And, why go to The Guardian, which is a left wing newspaper, which is very anti Johnson? There's a lot of question marks about this situation. As to Boris Johnson, he he has been known to have a temper in his time as a journalist, but, show me a public figure who doesn't lose a temper now and again. Obviously, if there's allegations of something more serious, that needs to be taken seriously. No one is above the law. But I do not like um, the paparazzi style response to this, like ramming cameras in people's faces outside the residence. Um, I mean, my instinct is couples row. That's their business. It's got nothing to do with this um, race for the leadership. Is it newsworthy? Well, if the police turn up to the residence of someone who could be prime minister in a month, that is newsworthy. Of course it is. But I just think there are question marks around the circumstances. A day after the race was announced, and the fact the neighbours are really staunch Remain people, I don't know. It just seems a bit suspicious to me. Having said that, I'm not going to fault the police. They have to respond to these things. No further action has been taken. I don't think that Johnson would risk, if they're making allegations or insinuations that there's something worse going on here. I'll just say it: domestic violence. If he was that sort of man, would he risk that at this point? A month before, it just seems a bit reckless on his part if that was the case. And I must stress that the police arrived. They found all safe and well and no indication that anything had gone wrong. So I don't know. Couples row. I understand Johnson's going through a divorce, so it could be that his. I mean, I very much believe that politicians' private lives are their private lives. I'm a staunch believer in that. The only time it should become a public concern is if there are double standards, i.e., if they're doing something in their private life that contradicts what they're preaching in public life, if they're breaking the law. That's it. I really think that. I just hope this race doesn't get nasty and drags, families into it and stuff. I hope that both Johnson and Hunt keep it strictly between the two of them. Um, and the supporters have a responsibility to do that as well. So I don't know. Let me know what you think of this. Is it right that this is an issue? Does it sound like a conspiracy to smear Johnson, or is it a non-issue? What do you think?